Good morning. I'm going to show you how I created a map for a wedding in Blue Hill, Maine. And first of all, the clients emailed me their interest in having me design a map, and they included all of the things that were needed for their guests to get to the church on time, and the reception, and various other events that were happening in that weekend. So I read their email. I went to Google Maps and I zoomed in on Blue Hill, Maine, which you see up here at the top. The wedding itself was going to be in Brooklyn, Maine, which is about 30 minutes south of Blue Hill. So, and there were a number of places that had to be listed in both areas, as well as a spot halfway in between where there was an event at the bride's parents' house along the coast here. So the first thing I did was I printed out Google Map images and found, located on these maps, the places that had to be listed. There was a hotel here on the corner of these streets. There was a hotel here. There was a place at the landmark they wanted to include here, and they wanted these various roads also shown. They needed this road, which was the road that most guests would take, or all the guests would have to take to go to the church. So that was one area that had to be drawn in detail. Another area that had to be drawn in detail was the area of Brooklyn, Maine. Again, these roads here had to be listed. There was a inn here, another inn there, and the church was here. So essentially, looking back at the big map, they wanted me to draw a lot of area in that area had to be in detail, and down here that also had to be in detail. So in order for me to do that, I have to play a little bit of trickery here. I have to take the area up at the top and enlarge it so that those details can be easily seen on a printed map, where you can't zoom in and out like you can on Google Maps. So that had to be enlarged, sort of like I'm doing here. And the area down below also had to be enlarged, as I'm doing here. And but I also wanted it to vaguely, or more than vaguely, I wanted it to have the same contour of the real location. So, the ocean had a little bay coming in here like this, and it came down here, and it turned into little peninsulas here. I kept the shape of Blue Hill Bay more or less the same. You see it here. That coastline is drawn here vaguely. What the heck is this popping up? Cancel. I don't know. My computer does weird things. So, anyway, here was my plan. Again, to enlarge the area up here, showing all the roads and the venues. Have the road coming down here, down to Brooklyn, showing those places, and the place in between. So, when that's in my little head, I go to my drawing table and I come up with this drawing. And I send this to the client, and the client said, "Yep, you got everything. Everything that we wanted to be on the map is on the map." And I said, "Great." So I then, with that information, I send them a slightly more revised map showing the schedule of events. So Thursday there was the welcome dinner, rehearsal dinner, and then I had made sure that the schedule was the way that the client wanted it, and in the order they wanted it, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and this was going to be here, this was going to be somewhere else, etc., etc. So everything that needed to be on the map was on the map, and they said, yep, that's correct. And I said, good, we'll go on to the next step. It's actually sort of at this point, if the client said, oh, we're also going to do another event on Wednesday, this is the time for them to say, we want to have something here. And then I have to find out where that's going to be on the map and draw that too. But in this case, the client was moving forward. And now that I had the factoids and the roads and the places, I said, well, here's the part where I can be the artist. So I sketched it very quickly, again with pencil. We're going to have a fancy compass rose. We're going to have some sailboats. We're going to make the schedule will be, in a scroll-like thing over the water, more sailboats, and we'll make a border that looks like rope. So the client understood that, and then we moved to the next step. So far, everything essentially has been drawn in pencil, like an erase pencil. Pencil to me is the medium that allows for change, allows for adaptation, allows for me to come up with a new idea, or the client to say, we need another road put in there, or whatever. That's when I work with pencil. Moving from pencil to pen is the sort of, we've gone past the fail-safe point. At this point, everything is set, we're all ready to go, and we move to pen. So I go over to my drawing table and I hand letter all of the schedule. I hand ink in the map, the locations of the things, the roads, the names of the roads, the numbers of the roads, and I scan that in for one last time for the client to say everything is perfect. And that's when at this point, I'm finally able to sort of ignore the factoids, and I can put on my beret, and I can be artistic from now on. So this is how I make this map, which looks kind of boring here. I try to make it look pretty. And as usual, no matter how big Macintosh computers are, they're not big enough for me. I'm always running out of room to do the work I need to do. So here's the scan. Everything is drawn. The icons are drawn. The roads are drawn. Everything's drawn. I scan it into my computer. And once that's in there, I now make it pretty. And I do that first by making it into two colors. Zoom out. I'm showing you something. Pretend you didn't see that. So here's the map in two colors. The icons were the contrasting colors, so you could find them easily on the map. The roads, the names of the roads, the numbers of the roads, names of the towns were all done in brown. The icons were all done in blue. So they're all placed where they belong, and now we continue to make it look pretty by adding stippling. Now stippling is little tiny dots that add a texture to land or water. So we added the texture to the land here. These are all little tiny tan dots. And then we added texture to the water, which you see there. So already now the map is starting to look a little bit prettier. The border of the coiled rope is added, you see. And then finally, I add sailboats. Now the sailboats were drawn in addition to make it look like water, but the sailboats had initials of the deceased, in this case, grandparents that the bride and groom had. They wanted to have them on the map or somehow memorialized, so we decided we could do that by having their initials on the various sails. And I scan them in. Usually everything on my maps are separate layers, so if I have to move them around, I can make them a little bit larger. I can flip them, have them face the other way. There's a few things that I do as I design a map, which allows me a little bit of wiggle room um, as I'm creating this thing. Finally, the last thing I add, and I usually plan for this in advance, I will add the compass rose in the area there that's empty. And again, there it is. And here, too, I can enlarge or reduce it. I can um, move it around a little bit, deciding what looks good to my artistic eye. And then it's all said and done and all ready to go. And in this case, there were no last-minute changes. A last-minute change sometimes is less traumatic than at other times. Changing the time of the rehearsal dinner from 6:30 to 6 o'clock is not too much of a trauma for me to do. It still requires reading the email, opening up the file, changing the file, saving the file. It does take time, but it's not, I don't have to go back to the drawing board really. If, on the other hand, the client decided that they wanted to add another hotel, which is located here, and then I have to add 2 more roads, I can do that. Here it wouldn't be that traumatic either. I'd have to make the compass rose a little smaller. But if, on the other hand, they wanted to add a hotel here in that little tiny space, I can't fit the wording there. So what I'd have to do is redraw this and move this high street, this street here, would have to be moved out, so I'd have room in this area to add the new thing, and then I'd have to move South Street over this way to make room for that. So everything, you don't just add one thing to a map usually. You have to move everything else around to make it look pretty and to make it have everything fit nice and easy. And so that's why I ask the clients to please double check, triple check everything as we move along, so that I don't have to do something that involves going back to the drawing board, scanning things in, and end up costing more money on the client's part. So anyway, at the end of the day, the client was very happy with what they got. The map provided not only the knowledge or the information required for the guests to go to all these places, but the schedule on the banner here allowed them to see where they had to be at what time. It also looks pretty, so that it was a souvenir that they got to keep, memorializing the weekend. And so anyway, that's how that worked. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Toodaloo.